And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us on the marine portion of your broadcast. I'm meteorologist Emily Niebuhr. It's August 24th, 2023. So we have some important outages to share with you today. Very important to note, NOAA weather radio outage is expected this weekend. So it's going to start at 2 p.m. Friday, August 25th, and continue until 5 p.m. Monday, August 28th. It's going to impact stations including Utqiagvik, Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, St. Paul, Unalaska, Cold Bay, and Yakutat. Again, no weather radio outage this weekend starting 2 p.m. Friday, August 25th through 5 p.m. Monday, August 28th. Here are some of the impacts we are expecting this weekend. Some surface, hydrologic, and ship observations may be unavailable. The 12Z or 4 a.m. upper air observations, excluding Utqiagvik and Anchorage, will be unavailable. NOAA Weather Radio 8 sites will be out of service. The Alaska Aviation Weather Unit graphics may be delayed or unavailable. Some Alaska Weather TV graphics may be delayed or unavailable. And experimental Alaska aviation guidance will be unavailable. And then we're expecting again from 2 p.m. Friday, August 25th, through 5 p.m. Monday, August 28th. It's important to note you can still get your weather forecasts and your warnings and tsunami information online anytime at weather.gov and tsunami.gov. Again, it's weather.gov and tsunami.gov. Let's take a look at our sea ice edge. Again, the light blues are showing less than 80% concentration. It's not telling us how thick that ice is, just the concentration. So we still do have a patch of sea ice off of the coast of Utqiagvik outside of Prudhoe Bay, but generally fairly ice-free across much of our north. Let's take a look at some of these weather systems that are going to very impactful to our marine community this weekend. We're going to be having several lows moving across a Bering, a ridge helping to create a tight gradient on the backside of that low, and strong winds associated with several lows moving in. So by Friday, that front associated with that system moves towards the north and east, but we have the second low pressure system coming in on Saturday with a very strong gradient between this high pressure system in the east and between this low pressure system, and a strong gradient on the backside of that low as high pressure comes in. So some pretty gusty and wavy conditions expected this weekend. Let's start with the Panhandle. Friday, we are expecting in interior areas, waves up to about 3 feet, winds up to about 15 knots. As you go outside into the Gulf, strongest winds are going to be outside of Yakutat, about 25 knots, waves up to 6 feet, but generally 10 to 20 knots and waves 4 to 5 feet. By Saturday, we're expecting the interior areas still fairly sheltered, winds of about 15 to 10 knots, waves up to 3 feet, and of course it could be higher in channeled areas, so always travel with a little bit of caution. But generally along the Gulf Coast Saturday, we're expecting waves a little higher of about 6 to 5 feet as we have this frontal system pushing into the Gulf of Alaska. For Friday, we're expecting waves up to 4 feet in Prince William Sound. We're looking at waves up to about 4 to 5 feet along the Gulf Coast, but in some places up to 7 feet associated with that low pressure system. We're getting some channeling south of Homer, waves up to 8 feet, even 6 feet across much of the inlet with winds up to 20 knots. So certainly a windy and wavy day for Friday. Conditions get even stronger as that front we were talking about moves in across Saturday. So we're looking at waves about widespread 7 to 8 foot waves across much of the North Gulf Coast, up to 5 feet in Prince William Sound with winds up to 25 knots. Across Cook Inlet south of Homer, up to 8 feet. Little weaker waves up to 3 to 4 feet as you move north across Cook Inlet, but definitely some gusty winds. So we look for your Alaska Peninsula on Friday. We do have that low pressure system moving across the area. So, and with its associated front. So we do have waves about 4 to 5 feet south of the Alaska Peninsula, a little sheltered in Bristol Bay, about 4 feet, but winds generally 15 knots. Stronger winds and waves as you go south, 20 knots with waves up to 5 feet outside of Kodiak. As we move into Saturday, dramatically different as that frontal system pushes in. We're looking at widespread waves up to 10 feet off of Kodiak, winds up to 30 knots. But south of the Alaska Peninsula, we're looking at about 6 feet south of Falls Pass, 20 knots. But again, generally 8 to 9 feet. Within the Bristol Bay area, as you go closer to Dillingham, about 4-foot waves, 30 knots. But as you go towards the eastern Aleutians, we're looking about 8-foot waves and winds of up to 20 knots. Friday, across the Aleutian chain, in the eastern Aleutian Islands, we have winds of about 20-25 knots, waves 5 to 6 feet. Pretty similar as you go towards the central Aleutians and even eastern Aleutians. Do have some of that northerly flow on the backside, northwesterly flow on the backside of that low. Again, stronger winds on Saturday with that system. So expect near the eastern Aleutians, waves up to 8 feet, winds about 20 knots. And up to 25 knots near Unalaska. But calmer conditions as you go to Shemya with waves of about 5 feet and winds about 20 knots. For Friday, along the Bering Sea, we're looking at about 20 knots with waves up to 7 feet near the Pribilof Islands. Winds and waves definitely get stronger as you go northward, again, with that pressure gradient between that low and that ridge. As you go towards Nome, waves about 4 feet, winds 15 knots. But definitely stronger as you go towards Savonia. Saturday, waves up to 11 feet near the Pribilof Islands and winds up to 30 knots. As we go towards Hooper Bay, winds 20 knots, waves 6 feet. Towards Nome, a little more sheltered, 20 knots, waves about 3 feet. Friday, again, through the Bering Strait, we're seeing waves up to about 8 feet in channeled areas and winds 30 knots. So you go northward along the coast with that nice northwesterly flow behind the front, waves of about 4 to 6 feet. And as we get towards Prudhoe Bay and Kaktovik, we're looking at winds up to about 25 knots, waves up to 5 feet. Saturday, we have waves up to 6 feet north of Prudhoe Bay and 25 outside of Utqiagvik in ice-free waters, and winds up to about 25 knots. Waves up to 9 feet outside of Wales and 7 feet north of Savonia and up to 11 feet southward. And Nome, we're expecting waves again to be about 3 feet.